Hello and welcome to this interview with Maryann Burton, one of our artists presently on display at Alfa Art Gallery's current exhibition, Mirror to the World. My name is Perrin, and together we will be going over some of Burton's artistic process, as well as the pieces that were graciously contributed to both our physical and online presentations. We're going to start off pretty simple today. Maryann, how are you?
Fine, thank you, Katie. How are you?
I'm great. Super excited to have this opportunity to talk about your art and some of your pieces at our most recent show. So first, tell us a little bit about yourself. Where are you from and where do you live now? And how did you initially get into art and begin your career as an artist?
Okay, well, I originally grew up in Jersey City and moved to Hasbrouck Heights when I got married. My husband, Robert, and I raised our children in Hasbrouck Heights. As far as art goes, I've always gravitated towards the arts. My biggest spark was in high school with my art teacher, Sister Donna, and she directed me to go to vocational school, and that's where I took commercial art, and then went on to the Newark School of Fine and Industrial Art.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. I think it's really interesting to see that like how that influences your practice today, and to talk a little bit more about inspiration. What is the inspiration behind the selection of your watercolor paintings on display and Mirror to the World?
The ones that I chose to display are some of my favorite places to visit and to go to plein air paint. Sometimes I visited New York City again. It's near where I used to work, that area for that particular painting. And the everyday scenes that you see, sometimes you overlook them. And if you take the time to really look at where you are and the way things are set up, or the way things are interacting with light or whatever, you get to see and appreciate the beauty and comfort of just plain old everyday scenes.
Yeah, no, of course. And I noticed that's something that you explore in your works, and I definitely want to dive deeper into that later, especially about some of the objects and settings you choose to paint. But first, to pivot a little bit, why do you choose to work with a medium of transparent watercolor? And how does your medium relate to your overall aesthetic practice and the messaging in your work?
The transparent watercolor gives me a lot of latitude to do a lot of different things. In the way you can use it very thin, you can use it very thick. It has a lot of options. But I thrive, my aesthetics are, I thrive on preparation. Most of the work that goes into each painting that I do in my studio in particular, the work goes on before the actual painting gets even started. And that helps in my plein air work, and my plein air work helps my studio work also, because learning to translate things quicker and with less strokes is always so much better. And it always intrigued me how light affects things. So when I see light, I want to see how light shadows on objects or on people. I like to try and translate that onto a two-dimensional surface.
Yeah, that's definitely something I noticed in such pieces on display as Dingman's on Yupo. But I'm going to ask you a couple of questions about that later as well. But to talk more about your practice, in your artist statement, you mentioned how your watercolor works are intended to provoke profound emotional responses in viewers, as well as how you're thrilled by the flow, the spontaneity and feel of painting with transparent watercolor, and how your practice is inspired by the unpredictability of the medium. And in light of this, how would you describe your aesthetic practice, and why do you choose to create representational and figurative works of art?
Some of the things that I create give an emotion. I get an emotional response to. Sometimes it's experiences, sometimes it's just an emotion. many beautiful things can't be controlled. And like the clouds, the sunlight, the way the light hits the fruit in the market. Sometimes these things surprise you, and it's nice to stop and look at the ordinary, because when you explore the ordinary, sometimes you find the extraordinary. And a lot of I find with watercolor, that's the essence of transparent watercolor. You know, once you play with it a bit, see what it does, it surprises you. You see some even greater things than you thought you were capable of, or the medium is capable of.
Definitely. And I think that unpredictability is something that, even though your settings are traditional, normal settings, a lot of the time that we see around us, like I think that your aesthetic practice and the way that you work with the medium, like has this, it explores that unpredictability in a really interesting way. And in your works on display and Mirror to the World, what are some central themes or subject matters that you explore?
Definitely the light, the way the light plays off of everyday objects and everyday scenes, the way it plays on glass or water, and how changeable it is, how it can change the color of things, how it can change the mood. Some artists say that watercolor artists paint light. Mm-hmm. We don't paint objects, we paint the light, and it's actually the effect of that light that changes everything. So capturing it at different times of year and at different times of day gives a lot of variety. So many different things to try and capture and translate and to put the mood into it.
No, definitely. And I love, like, particularly one of your works, I Want to Go to Lunch, in which you depict the interior of a restaurant featuring empty tables and chairs depopulated by human figures that appear to be awaiting the arrival of restaurant patrons. What is the story behind this piece, and what is the significance of its title and the interior setting you chose to depict?
This was at the National Arts Club in Manhattan, Gramercy Park, and we were the Catherine Laura Lard Wolf Art Club, which I'm a member. We were setting up in another space in that building for an event. And I peeked into the restaurant, and the restaurant was empty. It was lonely feeling and devoid of people. It just gave this lonely feeling. That was right before COVID became a thing. I mean, we knew it was we didn't think it was in the United States yet, but it hadn't become full blown yet. So this was right before things started to get crazy and things closed down. So when I looked through my photographs and I saw this picture, so that really brings out the whole mood of the time that it is now, and it's the lockdown had just started, and when I'm looking at the photos, and the thing that came to mind was I wanted to go to lunch. I wanted to be able to go out to lunch. And that particular line from the Goldie Hawn movie, Private Benjamin, came to mind, just hearing her saying, I want to go to lunch. And it just all came together, and it suited the mood of the day. So that's why that one got painted. It's a movie piece. I think it says it all from that.
Yes, I think that theme is so appropriate for the pandemic and our 2 years in it. Both your works, I Want to Go to Lunch and Elaine's Cape May on Board, feature scenes set in restaurants or bars that both seem to imply human presence, despite the fact that humans are absent from the pictorial space. In your work, Elaine's Cape May on Board, the viewer is physically made to inhabit the position and the perspective of the artist. In contemplating the painting, we feel that we are at the bar waiting for our drink to be made. What is your motivation behind depicting these interior spaces and naming these pieces, and what stories do they tell?
That particular piece I did twice. So that one is on board, watercolor board. The first one I did was on traditional watercolor paper, and that was entitled 30-Minute Wait. So I couldn't title the two pieces the same thing, but it's all about anticipation. We were in the restaurant and there was a 30-minute wait to have a table ready for us. So we sat at the bar and I saw the light coming through those, and looking at those the liquor bottles and the glasses, and the shine of the wood on the bar. It just really intrigued me. I said I have to paint this, I have to try and get this paper and kind of portray that waiting feeling. And I'm happy to hear that you did get that feeling from it. So the animation is sometimes more fun than what you're waiting for.
Mm-hmm, definitely. And one of your other pieces, to pivot a little bit again, your painting by the Waldorf is an urban landscape painting. And what story does this piece tell, and what is your inspiration behind this piece?
On occasion, I go out, just reference gathering. I go out with my camera and take pictures and just walk around. Sometimes I'm on vacation. Sometimes I go out specifically just to reference photos. You know, out of 100 pictures, I may choose one to do a painting of. But this was an area in New York City that near where I used to work. So I was exploring the area again, see how it's changed over the last few years. And I was in front of the Waldorf, and the Waldorf was going to be changed. They're going to be closed for renovation. So for a few years, I think there's 2 more years left on this renovation. But the area was still thriving and happy and Manhattan-like. Mm-hmm. So it just spoke to me the way the light is bouncing off the building. That's the MetLife building in the background that Park Avenue goes through. And the Waldorf's, of course, on the left side of the painting. But that's what that was about. And of course, I always love to get an American flag mm-hmm. in my painting. Of course, that's in there too.
Yeah. I love the way that you've simulated color in your pieces and captured sunlight and light reflections, as you mentioned earlier. And particularly in your piece, Dingman's on Yupo, which is one of my personal favorites. What is the inspiration behind why you chose to depict this particular waterfall and to capture this vision of the natural world?
Dingman's Falls is a special place that I started visiting with my husband when we were still dating. So this is quite a while ago. This is before the government made it a tourist attraction. We used to camp there, right at the top of the falls, and we would go in the water, and we'd spend the weekend with friends in tents, and we knew people who owned the land in the area. It's a very peaceful area. Like I said, the government came in and they built platforms and safe walkways for people to come in from the outside and view it themselves. So it's become kind of a landmark, but because we knew it before it was a landmark, it's always had a special place in my heart. And it's become one of my favorite places to go and plein air paint. I take a group up there every year, and I try to anyway. And we enjoy it. It's different every time of year also. Also an experimental piece too. I did that on Yupo paper. Yupo is a see if I can say it right, polyethylene, I think, plastic paper that resists water. So you pour water on something, and all it does is bead up. So that is still done in transparent watercolor. And it's a matter of using water and letting it dry. It has to lay flat, otherwise everything just runs right off it. So it's a study in textures and patience, because you have to wait until one dries before you apply another. And if you touch it too much, it just comes away, it comes right off. So that whole painting could be wiped right back to white paper. So it's kind of a temperamental paper, but it's kind of fun. In my approach, I had to really think about how I was going to do it and when I was going to do what I was going to do. So it's was kind of fun doing that all around.
Yeah, that's a great story, and you can really see like the emotion in it and like how it like conjures like a personal reaction. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. And in general, I want to ask you, of all your works, which is your favorite, or which do you have a particular attachment to? If you don't have one, which piece would you like to spend a little bit more time talking about?
My favorite pieces change probably as I progress in my career. Pieces that were favorite yesterday are not so favorite today. It depends. It could also depend on, it could become my favorite piece when I look at it again in a year, when it reminds me of who I was with when I painted it, or where I was, or the feeling I got when I painted it. So there are quite a few pieces that would be my favorites. Sometimes it's just the reaction someone else has to it, that if I see I've made a connection, then it holds more meaning for me also. So it's different. They always change, always change.
Of course, yeah. And there's so many pieces that you probably like for different moments in time are your favorites and have different significance. Well, once again, thank you. I don't have any more questions. However, if there's anything else you'd like to add that you might have thought of during our interview, anything you're working on now, any shows you're going to be in soon, any lingering thoughts, feel free to share.
Okay. Well, I continue to exhibit at any chance that I get. Hopefully things will start opening up again, and we'll have more options. Any place I'll post on my website where I'm going to be exhibiting. That's MaryannBurton.com. And I'm still teaching. Teach watercolor, which gives me a lot of joy. Seeing other people get something, see that light bulb go off, and seeing them have some fun with the medium is great. But I'm hoping to resume teaching in person again soon. I was teaching on Zoom, and I am still teaching plein air, which is one of my loves. But just keep painting and explore it. If you don't think you have any artistic ability, do it anyway.
Yeah. Well, once again, Maryann, thank you so much for speaking with us all today and sharing insight into your creations. And I would also like to take a moment to thank all of our sponsors, including Amboy Bank, Magyar Bank, Johnson & Johnson, New Brunswick City Center, Middlesex County Cultural and Heritage Commission, Bristol Myers Squibb, and Pfizer Inc. Thank you.